I demand a trial by combat.
This is Let's Get Litty Read Along, GOT edition. Escape into the land of Westeros each week as we travel through the Seven Kingdoms. Which house will prevail and rule the Iron Throne, or gain its independence? Is a bigger evil really lurking beyond the wall? With decade-long summers and even longer winters, grab your favorite drink, sit back, and relax because reading is coming. Rock on. Hey everyone, welcome back to episode 10 of Let's Get Litty Read Along. We are behind getting this out this week because girl had a busy week and a busy weekend. We went and saw the National Broadway tour of Les Miserables, and it was so much fun. It was very long and a very tiring day. And so then I thought, oh, I'll just do this on Sunday. Have some wine on a Liddy episode. And then we started doing some spring cleaning. And then I took a nap. So priorities. Like the lighting. So sorry. It's awful tonight. I just can't get a decent. It's either making me look like a ghost or it's too dark, so whatever, I guess. Okay, couple of fun things. Because I wanted to make this episode fun, but then the nap prevailed. We're coming in hot with some shad clacks for everyone. So we're just gonna kick this off with a couple shots. Some shot skis. Hopefully this doesn't get taken down for content. Whatever.
You're my spicy margarita, babe. Burn my tongue, make me shake. Mix it up or give it to me straight. Turn me on, make me say.
Oh, Cabo, met that girl in Cabo, wearing Ferragamo. We was going shot for shot for shot like Desperado. Snuck into the bathroom, she might be a problem. I should probably stay away. Girl, you crazy, couldn't even wait for the room. Shaking, shaking, trying to keep up with you.
Hey, you're my spicy margarita, babe. Burn my tongue, make me shake. Mix it up or give it to me straight. Turn me on, make me say.
Shy, 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 shy. I just can't stop. You the only one I want.
You're my spicy margarita, baby. Burn my tongue, make me say.
Morning, text me in the morning. Put on a performance. I be going shot for shot for shot. She think I'm Jordan, but she screamed a ruler. My ego enormous. Feeling up your body, babe. Girl, you crazy. Couldn't even wait for the room. Shaking, shaking, trying to keep up with you.
You're my spicy margarita, babe. Burn my tongue, make me shake. Mix it up or give it to me straight. Turn me on, make me say.
Shy, 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 shy. I just can't stop. You're the only one I want.
You're my spicy margarita,
You're my spicy
baby.
girl.
Burn my
You're my spicy
tongue,
girl.
make me say.
You're my
Is it hot enough?
yeah, it's hot enough.
Should I take it off?
Yeah, you should take it off.
Okay, that was our shot hour. Little shot sesh. Of course, you already know. Filled with deep happy, per usual. Ooh, the McGillicuddy, great, smooth. This shit. Now, a couple other things. We stay locked and loaded up at Let's Get Litty. Will we dip into them? Probably not tonight. but in future episodes. Whoop. So we have some Riesling. Relax, don't do it. Da, 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 da. And I purely only bought this because I am unshamefully into this season of Love is Blind for the first time, and I found Love is Wine Chardonnay, just like the bottles they drink at the house. And I'm gonna keep this bottle after it's gone. This one's not been open. The relax one has, because I thought last night when I got back from Les Miserables that I would have a couple glasses and record so I could get out early this morning. And I had 2 sips and fell asleep. So, adulting. Now, before we get into the chapters, a couple fun announcements. I ordered some new books. This one is Hans Christian Andersen, Complete Fairy Tales, and the Grimm's Brothers. Nope, Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales. So, stay tuned for some bonus episodes of fairy tales. We got the OG, and the OGGs. But this is the ones that the Little Mermaid first have, where she turns into dust. Beware. I don't know when the extra eps will drop. Gonna start on that soon, but again, your girl's pretty busy. It's springtime, which means we are closer to dance recital. We've got spring sports like soccer and plays happening, so to find the time to record tons of extra episodes is just quite difficult. But a couple of the contents, the tallow candle, little Ida's flower, and naughty boy. God can never die. Holy shit, these are old. 1820, 1835, 1838, 1843. I did not realize they were this old. Wow. Holy cannoli. Oh, and there's pages. Contents last forever. The ugly duckling. The shadow. The girl who trod on the loaf. A string of pearls. The thorny road of honor. 2 maidens. Oh, Judgment Day. Heartache. A good humor. We keep going. The butterfly, the beetle, the ice maiden, the teapot. I don't actually see the Little Mermaid in this contents though, so did we get the right one? I do not know. If not, we'll buy that one, but I'm sure these are still full of great, great stories. Those shots are really hitting me. I got to double wind at the show, and ooh, boy, did that hit when I hadn't had any food. I thought I was gonna pee my pants because the first long is like the first half is so long. The moment I was like tapping my foot, moving, and then the moment the lights went off on the last song and I heard the first up and ran to when I say I ran, I could have been in the Olympics for speed walking. And I'm glad that I did it because when I came out of the bathroom was over here, the line for the girls out the door, down the hall, around, and by the front doors. I would have peed my pants had I waited in that line. No doubt about it. Not complete if Little Mermaid's not in there, but I guess we'll see. All right. Aren't these books just so cool looking? And they were pretty cheap too. But if anyone has certain books and stories they want to read for the B-sides, which will be like long ass full book episodes, like an audio book, let me know your suggestions. And if you want to contribute towards our library, donations always help. Ooh, this one will be fun. We've got Rapunzel and Hansel and Gretel, the fisherman and his wife, Cinderella, the wolf and the man, the wolf and the foxes and cousin, and the fox and the cat. The elves, a lot of things I've never heard of. This will be fun. Holy shit, this one also goes on forever. And then we have the children's legend. Wow. Okay, like I said, just stay tuned for those B-side episodes. Drop your suggestions. These ones will be like I said, full, long weeks. Where we will keep our main Friday afternoon episodes shorter and intense for now. Unless someone's like, just read more so we can get through the series so much faster because at this rate, I swear it's going to be like 5 years, 1 year per book. So this summer we will definitely try to figure out a faster method. But I don't want to like bore everyone either each week. But should we just jump right in? All right. I actually need a little light. We are hitting ya with your girl Dany, Daenerys, Stormborn, Last Targaryen. Daenerys Targaryen wed Khal Drogo with fear and barbaric splendor in a field beyond the walls of Pentos, for the Dothraki believed that all things of importance in a man's life must be done beneath the open sky. Drogo had called his Khalasar to attend him, and they had come 40,000 Dothraki warriors and uncounted numbers of women, children, and slaves. Outside the city walls, they camped with their vast herds, raising places of woven grass, eating everything in sight, and making the good folk of Pentos more anxious with every passing day. My fellow magistars have doubled the size of the city guard, Illyrio told them over platters of honey duck and orange snap peppers one night at the manse that had Drogo's. The Khal had joined the Khalasar, his estate given over to Daenerys and her brother until the wedding. Best we get Princess Daenerys wedded quickly before they hand half the wealth to Pentos away for Giselle Swords and Bravos, said Jorah Mormont Justin. The exile had offered her brother his sword the night Dany was sold to Khal Drogo. Viserys had accepted eagerly. Mormont had been their constant companion ever since. Major Star Illyrio laughed lightly through his forked beard, and Viserys did not so much as smile. He can have her tomorrow if he likes, her brother said. He glanced over at Dany, and she lowered her eyes, so long as he pays the price. Illyrio waved a languid hand in the air, rings glittering on his fat fingers. I have told you all is settled. Trust me. The Khal has promised you a crown, and you shall have it. Yes, but when? When the Khal chooses, Ilario said. I'm gonna have to get my book light out one of these days if I keep recording at night when the lighting's bad and I have to turn the big light off to have this light shine. I'm literally gonna need my reading light because my print's small and the book is small. Okay, back in it. He will have the girl first, and after they are wed, he must make his procession across the plains and present her to the Dosh Calhoun as Vaz Dorath. After that, perhaps, if the omen favors war. The tip of the tongue, the tip of the tongue. I need to get the accent down. I don't know what accent it is, but we got to get the accent down. Viserys seethed with impotent impatience. I piss on Dothraki omens. The usurper sits on my father's throne. How long must I wait? Illyrio gave a massive shrug. You have waited most of your life, great king. What is another few months? Another few years? Sir Jorah, who had travelled as far east as vast Dothrak, nodded in agreement. I counsel you to be patient, your grace. The Dothraki are true to their word, but they do things in their own time. A lesser man may beg a favour from the Khal, but must never presume to berate him. Viserys bristled. Guard your tongue, Mormont, or I'll have it out. I am no lesser man. I am a rightful lord of the Seven Kingdoms. The dragon does not beg. Sir Jorah lowered his eyes respectfully. Illyrio smiled enigmatically and tore a wig from the duck. Honey and grease ran over his fingers and dripped down into his beard as he nibbled at the tender meat. There are no more dragons, Dany thought, staring at her brother, though she did not dare say it aloud. Yet that night she dreamt of one. Viserys was hitting her brother. Hurting her? No. You guys, apparently those shots did more than I thought. Viserys, we could do like a Midwest mom accent. Viserys was hitting her, hurting her. She was naked, clumsy with fear. That was not Midwest mom. Oh my god, the accents. I promise, one day more, we will get the accent stuff. She ran from him, but her body seemed thick and ungainly. He struck her again. She stumbled and fell. You woke the dragon, he screamed as he kicked her. You woke the dragon! You woke the dragon! Her eyes were slick with blood. She closed her eyes and whimpered, as if in answer there was hideous ripping sound as the cracking of some great fire. When she looked again, Viserys was gone. Great columns of flame rose all around, and in the midst of them was the dragon. It turned its great head slowly. When its molten eyes found her, she woke, shaking and covered with a fine sheen of sweat. She had never been so afraid until the day of her wedding came at last. The ceremony began at dawn and continued until dusk, an endless day of drinking and feasting and fighting. A mighty earthen ramp had been raised amid the grass palaces, and there Dany was seated beside Khal Drogo, above the seething sea of Dothraki. She had never seen so many people in one place, nor people so strange and frightening. The horse lords might put on rich fabrics and sweet perfumes as they visited the free cities, but out under the open sky, they kept the old ways. Men and women alike wore painted leather vests and bare chests and horsehair leggings cinched by broad medallion belts, and the warriors greased their long braids with fat from the rendering pits. They gorged themselves on horse flesh, roasted with honey and peppers, drank themselves blind on fermented mare's milk and Alario's fine wines, and spat jests at each other across the fires, their voices harsh and alien in Dany's ears. Viserys was seated just below her, splendid in a new black wool tunic with a scarlet dragon on his chest. Ilario and Ser Jorah sat beside him. Theirs was a place of high honor, just below the cow's own blood riders, but Dany could see the anger in her brother's lilac eyes. He did not like sitting beneath there, and he fumed when the slaves offered each dish first to the callant bride, and served him from the portions they refused. He could do nothing but nurse the resentment, so nurse it he did, his mood growing blacker by the hour at each insult to his person. Dany had never felt so alone as she did, seated in the midst of the vast horde. Her brother told her to smile, so she smiled until her face ached and the tears came unbidden to her eyes. She did her best to hide them, knowing how angry Viserys would be if she saw her crying, terrified of how Khal Drogo might react. Food was brought to her, steaming joints of meat and thick black sausages and Dothraki blood pies, and later fruits and sweet stews and delicate pastries from the kitchens and pintos. But she waved it all. Her stomach was a broil, and she knew it could. We need to back this bitch up. Oh, apparently I just need to back the laptop up. But I'd just like to take this small reminder to put out a PSA for everybody that your Dany girl, our girl Dany, is only 14 right now. So keep that in your mind as you're hearing these words. Would you not also be terrified if you're 14 being married off to some Dothraki man and your whole life's being changed because you have a bitch ass brother that wants to be king because he's a dragon? I think the fuck not. So, like, let's put some respect on her name and remember that. PSA over. There was no one to talk to. Khal Drogo shouted commands and gestured down to his blood riders and laughed at their replies, but he scarcely danced at Dany beside him. They had no common language. Dothraki was incomprehensible to her, and the cow knew only a few words of the bastard Valerian of the Free Cities, and none at all of the common tongue of the Seven Kingdoms. She would have welcomed the conversation of Ilario and her brother, but they were far too below her to hear. So she sat at the so she sat in her wedding silks, nursing a cup of honeyed wine, afraid to eat, talking silently to herself. I I am the blood of the dragon, she told herself. I am Daenerys Stormborn, princess of Dragonstone, of the blood and of seed of Aegon the Conqueror. The sun was only a quarter of the way up the sky when she saw her first man die. Drums were beating as some of the women danced for the cow. Drogo watched without expression, but his eyes followed their movements, and from time to time he would toss down the bronze medallion for the woman to fight over. The warriors were watching too. One of them finally stepped into the circle, grabbed a dancer by the arm, and pushed her to the ground and mounted her right there, as a stallion mounts a mare. Ilario had told her that might happen. The Dothraki mate like the animals in their herds. There is no privacy in the Khalasar, and they do not understand sin or shame as we do. Dany looked away from the coupling, frightened when she realized what was happening, but a second warrior stepped forward, and a third, and soon there was no way to avert her eyes. Then two men seized the same woman. She heard a shout, saw a shove, and in the blink of an eye, the Arthroks were out, long razor-sharp blades, half sword and half scythe. A dance of death began of the warriors, circles and slashed, leaping toward each other, whirling the blades around their heads, shrieking insults at each clash. No one made a move to interfere. It ended as quickly as it began. The Arthroks shivered together faster than Dany could follow. Jesus, it won't stay focused. Welcome to Hot Mess Express, episode 10. I think it's time we're about to invest and upgrade our equipment. The Arthroks shivered together faster than Dany could follow. When one man missed a step, the other swung his blade in a flat arc. Steel bit into flesh just above the Dothraki's waist and opened him from backbone to belly button, spilling his entrails into the dust. As the loser died, the winner took hold of the nearest woman, not even the one they had been quarreling over, and had her then and there. Slaves carried off the body, and the dancing resumed. Magister Ilario had warned Dany about this too. A Dothraki wedding without at least 3 deaths is deemed a dull affair, he said. Her wedding must have been especially blessed. Before the day was over, a dozen men had died. As the hours passed, the terror grew in Dany until it was all she could do not to scream. She was afraid of the Dothraki, whose ways seemed alien and monstrous, as if they were beasts in human skins, and not true men at all. She was afraid of her brother, of what he might do if she felt him. Most of all, she was afraid of what would happen tonight under the stars when her brother gave her up to the hulking giant who sat drinking beside her with a face still as cruel as a bronze mask. I am the blood of the dragon, she told herself again. When the last sun was low in the sky, Khal Drogo clapped his hands together, and the drums and the shouting and the feasting came to a sudden halt. Drogo stood and pulled Dany to her feet beside him. It was time for her bride gifts. And after the gift, she knew the sun had gone down. It would be time for the first ride and the consummation of her marriage. Dany tried to put the thought aside, but it would not leave her. She hugged herself to try to keep from shaking. Her brother Viserys gifted her with 3 handmaids. Dany knew they had cost him nothing. Ilario no doubt had provided the girls. Eri and Jagri were copper-skinned Dothraki with black hair and almond-shaped eyes. Doria, a fair-haired, blue-eyed Lycian girl. These are no common servants, sweet sister, her brother told her as they were brought forward one by one. Ilario and I selected them personally for you. Eri will teach you writing, Jagri will the Dothraki tongue, and Doria will instruct you in the womanly arts of love. He smiled thinly. She's very good. Ilario and I both can swear to that. Sir Jorah Mormont apologized for his gift. It is a small thing, my princess, but all the poor exile could afford, he said as he laid a small stack of old books before her. They were his histories and songs of the 7 kingdoms, she saw, written in the common tongue. She thanked him with all her heart. Magister Ilario murmured a comment, and 4 bleary slaves hurried forward, bearing between them a great cedar chest bound in bronze. When she opened it, she found piles of the finest velvets, and damask the free cities could produce. And resting on top, nestled in the soft cloth, three huge eggs. Dany gasped. They were the most beautiful things she had ever seen, each different than the others, patterned in such rich colors that at first she thought they were crusted with jewels, and so large it took both of her hands to hold one. She lifted it delicately, expecting that it would be made of some fine porcelain and delicate enamel, or even blown glass, but it was much heavier than that, as if it were all of solid stone. The surface of the shell was covered with tiny scales, and she turned the egg between her fingers. They shimmered like polished metal in the light of the setting sun. One egg was a deep green, and burnished bronze flecks that came and went dipping on how Dany turned it. Another was pale cream, streaked with gold. The last was black as a midnight sea, yet alive, with scarlet ripples and swirls. What are they? She asked, her voice hushed and full of wonder. Dragon's eggs from the Shadowlands beyond a sigh, said Magister Ilario. The eons have turned them to stone, yet they will burn bright with beauty. I shall treasure them always. Dany heard the tales of such eggs, but she had never seen one nor thought to see one. It was truly a magnificent gift, though she knew that Ilario could afford to be lavish. He had collected a fortune in horses and slaves for his part in selling her to Khal Drogo. The Cow's blood riders offered her the traditional three weapons, and splendid weapons they were. Hago gave her a great leather whip with a silver handle, Coholio a magnificent arcarch chased in gold, and Koth a double-curved dragonbone bow taller than she was. Magister Ilario and Sir Jorah had taught her the traditional refusals for these offerings. This is a gift worthy of a great warrior. O blood of my blood, I am but a woman. Let my lord husband bear these in my stead. And so Khal Drogo too received his bride's gifts. Other gifts she was given in plenty by the Dothraki, slippers and jewels and silver rings for her hair, medallion belts and painted vests and soft furs, sandskills and jars of scent, needles and feathers and tiny bottles of purple glass, and a gown made from the skin of 1,000 mice. A handsome gift, Khaleesi, Magister Ilario said of the last, after he had told her it was most lucky. The gifts mounted up around her in great piles, more gifts she could possibly imagine, more gifts than she could want or use. And last of all, Khal Drogo brought forth his own bride gift to her. An expectant hush rippled out of the center of the camp as he left her side, growing until he had swallowed the whole khalasar. When he returned, the dense press of Dothraki gift-givers parted before him, and he led the horse to her. Since she was a young filly, spirited and splendid, Dany knew just enough about horses to know that there was no ordinary animal. There was something about her that took her breath away. She was grey as the winter sea, with a mane like silver smoke. Hesitantly, she reached out and stroked the horse's neck, ran her fingers through the silver of her mane. Khal Drogo said something in Dothraki, and Magister Ilario translated. Silver for the silver of your hair, the Khal says. She's beautiful, Dany murmured. She is the pride of the khalasar, Ilario said. Custom decrees that the Khaleesi must ride a mount worthy of her place by the side of the cow. Drogo stepped forward and put his hands on her waist. He lifted her up as easily as if she were a child and set her on the thin Dothraki saddle, so much smaller than the one she was used to. She is a child. Dany sat there uncertain for a moment. No one had told her about this part. What should I do? She asked Ilario. Quick, deep, happy break. So, real quick, fun fact about me. I think we're gonna do two hours. A fun fact about me is the drunker I get, the squintier my right eye gets. So if you haven't noticed, as these shots have set in, look how much droopier this one is than this eye. Let's just take this over here. You know what? Fuck it, yellow. I know it's a Sunday and I do have to work tomorrow, but let's just make ourselves a little shooter of relaxation. Relax, don't do it. I said another words. Oh shit. Oh, what's going on? Do we shot mine? Should we shot it? Okay, we're not shotting it because it's hot. Yeah, I don't like hot wine. It was Soldier Mormont who answered, "Take the reins and ride. You need not to go far." Nervously, Dany gathered the reins in her hands and slid her feet into the short stirrups. She was only a fair rider. She had spent far more time traveling by ship and wagon and palanquin than by horseback. Praying that she would not fall off and disgrace herself, she gave the filly the lightest and most timid touch with her knees, and for the first time in hours she forgot to be afraid, or perhaps it was for the first time ever. The silver gray filly moved with a smooth and silken gait, and the crowd parted for her, every eye upon them. Dany, Dany, Dany. Dany found herself moving faster than she had intended, yet somehow it was exciting rather than terrifying. The horse broke into a trot and she smiled. Dothraki scrambled to clear a path. The slightest pressure with her legs, the lightest touch of the reins, and the filly responded. She sent into a gallop, and now the Dothraki were hooting and laughing and shouting at her as they jumped out of her way. As she turned to ride back, a fire pit loomed ahead, directly in her path. They were hemmed in on either side, with no room to stop. A daring she had never known filled Daenerys then, and she gave the filly her head. The silver horse leapt the flames as if she had wings. When she pulled up before Magister Ilario, she said, "Tell Khal Drogo that he has given me the wind." The fat Pintashi stroked his yellow beard as he repeated her words in Dothraki, and Dany saw her new husband smile for the first time. The last silver of sun vanished behind the high walls of Pentos to the west just then. Dany had lost all track of time. Khal Drogo commanded his blood riders to bring forth his own horse, a lean red stallion. As the cow was saddling the horse, Viserys slid close to Dany on her silver, dug his fingers into her leg, and said, "Please him, sweet sister, or I swear you will see the dragon wake as it has never been woken before." The fear came back to her then, with her brother's words. She felt like a child once more, only 13, all alone, not ready for what was about to happen to her. Okay, so PSA number 2, I was wrong, and she's 13, not 14, so she is a child. It's very hard to get past this in the books, I must say. Like I've said before, it's way easier in the show because they're all aged up so much using adult actors, but it's very hard for me to kind of read this and think about that in the terms of a 13 and 14-year-old for a lot of these and younger because like they are literal children. So just again, keep that in your mind. It's not cool, George. Why'd we have to make him so young? They rode out together as the stars came out, leaving the Khalasar and the grass places behind. Khal Drogo spoke no word to her, but the but drove his stallion to a hard trot when gathering dusk. The tiny silver bells in his long braid rang softly as he rode. I am blood of the dragon, she whispered aloud as she followed, trying to keep her courage up. I am blood of the dragon. I am blood of the dragon. The dragon was never afraid. Afterward, she could not say how far along they had ridden, but it was full of dark when they stopped at the grassy place beside a small stream. Drogo swung off his horse and lifted her down from hers. She felt as fragile as glass in his hands, her limbs as weak as water. She stood there helpless and trembling in her wedding silks while he secured the horses. And when he turned to look at her, she began to cry. Khal Drogo stared at her tears, his face strangely empty of expression. No, he said. He lifted his hand and rubbed the tears roughly with his callous thumb. You speak common tongue? Dany said in wonder. No, he said again. Perhaps he had only that word, she thought, but it was one more word than she had known he had, and somehow it made her feel a little better. Drogo touched her hair lightly, sliding the silver blonde strands between his fingers and murmuring softly in Dothraki. Dany did not understand the words, yet there was warmth in his tone, a tenderness she had never expected from this man. He put his finger beneath her chin and lifted her head so she was looking up into his eyes. Drogo towered over her as he towered over everyone. Taking her lightly under the arms, he lifted her and seated her on the rounded rock beside the stream. Then he sat on the ground facing her, legs crossed beneath him, their faces finally at height. No, he said. Is that the only word you know? She asked him. Drogo did not reply. His long, heavy braid was coiled in the dirt beside him. He pulled it over his right shoulder and began to remove the bells from his hair, one by one. After a moment, Dany leaned forward to help. When they were done, Drogo gestured. She understood. Slowly, carefully, she began to undo his braid. It took a long time. All the while, he sat there silently watching her. When she was done, he shook his head, and his hair spread out beneath him like a river of darkness, oiled and gleaming. She had never seen so long, so black, so thick. Then it was his turn. He began to undress her. His fingers were deft and strangely tender. He removed her silks one by one carefully, while Dany sat unmoving, silent, looking at his eyes. When he bared the small breast, she could not help herself. She averted her eyes and covered herself with her hands. No, Drogo said. He pulled her hands away from her breast, gently but firmly, then lifted her face again to make her look at him. No, he repeated. No, she echoed back at him. He stood her up then and pulled her close to remove the last of her silks. The night air was chilly on her bare skin. She shivered and goose flesh covered her arms and legs. She was afraid of what would come next, but for a while nothing happened. Khal Drogo sat with his legs crossed, looking at her, drinking in her body with his eyes. After a while, he began to touch her, lightly at first, then harder. She could sense the fierce strength in his hands, but never hurt her. He then held in his own and brushed her fingers one by one. He ran a hand gently down her leg. He stroked her face, tracing the curve of her ears, running a finger gently around her mouth. He put both hands in her hair and combed it with his fingers. He turned her around, massaged her shoulders, slid a knuckle down the path of her spine. It seemed as if hours passed before his hand finally went to her breast. He stroked the soft skin underneath until it tingled. He circled her nipples with his thumbs, pinched them between the thumb and forefinger, and began to pull at her, very lightly at first, then more insistently, until her nipples stiffened and began to ache. He stopped then, and drew her down onto his lap. Dany was flushed and breathless, her heart fluttering in her chest. He cupped her face in his huge hands, and she looked him in his eyes. No, he said. She knew it was a question. She took his hand and moved it down Disgusting. You hear that background noise? My husband burped like a freaking barbarian. She took his hand and moved it down to the wetness between her thighs. Yes, she whispered as she put his finger inside her. All right, you guys, I know I said we were gonna do another chapter, but I just can't after that. Holy crap. It's gonna take me, it's gonna make me a goal to get through those chapters when they're so young. I just like can't. I can't do it. So we're just gonna end there tonight, and I'm gonna go make dinner. Thank you all for listening. Per usual, sorry about this late episode. Thanks for bearing with us through these awkward scenes. At least as we get longer through the story and through more books, they get older. So I'm just gonna leave it there. Again, stay tuned for our B-side episodes. Like, subscribe, share, please follow. Any little thing helps, just to get the podcast out there. So I appreciate everybody. And I will be dropping B-sides soon. Let me know your book recommendations. And again, those ones will be full-length books. So they won't be every week because it's going to take a while to film, record full story. Like obviously these ones will be a little easier because they're short stories. Also, I do have another book, short story literature, for when I was in college that had a lot of fun stories that we'll throw in the mix. But like some suggestions from friends were the curl vaccines. So if it's a book like that, it's gonna be start to finish, couple hour long episode for all my bookies out there. I hope you guys are still enjoying it. Sorry about the bad lighting this week. We'll get it worked out. Time to upgrade stuff, as I said. And what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, I hope that this continues to just feel like social time, like a really fun book club where you're just gonna show up, drink, hang out, be read to, giggle, laugh, gasp. I really don't want this main episode series to sound like an audiobook. I originally thought that's kind of what it would end up being, but I'm really having fun just making it like social book club hours. So as always, stay litty, signing off. Find your spicy margarita, and let's get through this next week of work for us adults. And bye. Still bad lighting right on the way out. Nothing like showbiz.